guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Stacy. I thought I would do a little bookshelf tour type of video today with the shelves that you guys never see in any of my videos. And I've been reading a book that my husband has been trying to get me to read for years. And in the process of reading this book, it has me thinking a lot about his books and his reading. He actually reads way more than I do. He is the biggest reader I've ever known in my life. But I thought it might be fun to show you guys a little bit of a different view than you normally get from my videos and talk a bit about the books that are in my house. So I'm going to start with this bookcase right here. This is an IKEA bookcase. I think it was no, it's not a Billy. I'm not sure what it is. It's very old, probably 15 years old at this point. But it matches my bookcase that I have on the opposite wall with my like Christian fiction and classic books. This is solely for my husband's books, and he is a sci-fi and fantasy reader. That's basically all he reads. So yeah, if any of you guys are sci-fi fantasy fans, you'll recognize some of these names. R.A. Salvatore is one of his favorites that he has here. He writes these Forgotten Realms books, which I think have to do with Dungeons and Dragons, or he writes Dungeons and Dragons books also. He actually used to play Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer. He was really big into that when we started dating. And I didn't play Warhammer, but he did get me to start like helping him paint the little miniatures and create the sets. So that was a lot of fun. The next row has a picture of me and him. This is before we were even dating. We met when I was 14, so I went to high school with him. But this is the Robert Jordan shelf, the whole Wheel of Time series. He owns this series in multiple editions, but when this edition came out a few years ago, he had to have them. He had to collect this whole thing. And the companion novel, he just loves The Wheel of Time. This is a series he's read many, many times. He is a big rereader. I've read the first book of this series, and I remember thinking it was okay, but I just really couldn't get into it. I don't love reading fantasy or sci-fi because I have a hard time imagining the things. I like watching it though. I love the movies, but I just have a hard time reading it. Next shelf down, this is a big Dune shelf for all the Dune fans out there. And then we got the second book for the Name of the Wind series. I'm currently reading The Name of the Wind, so that's not on the shelf right now. And we got the Dunes. He loves, loves, loves the Dune books. He had me watch the Dune movie when we were dating, the movie from like the 70s or 80s. That was weird. That was a very weird movie. But moving on, he has a lot of David Eddings. I don't know anything about these books in particular, but I know he likes David Eddings a lot. Down here, I see the first book in the Witcher series. I love the Witcher show. I haven't read the books, and he's read the books and he loves the video game. I like watching him play the video game. I'm not great at it. Then we have the Game of Thrones books, which he actually didn't love this series. He said it was just so depressing. He didn't want to continue it. Moving on to the next shelf, have a random Robert Jordan book. Arthur C. Clarke writes a lot of sci-fi. Again, Dune, Isaac Asimov is one of his favorites. Terry Goodkind is another one of his favorites. I just stuck The Hobbit up here, A Never-Ending Story. I just read that Hobbit, I think like 2 months ago. Down here we have the Harry Potter books. We actually bought these in England. We were living in England during the time that these books were coming out. So we read them there, which was pretty cool. Got some knickknacks from his travels. He was in the Marines and he traveled everywhere, and he would always come home with like little trinket boxes and stuff. These were some of his favorites. The Baker's Boy, I think, is the first book by J.V. Jones. We got some Orson Scott Card and some random, I don't know what that one is. Bottom shelf has the Warhammer books, the Dungeons and Dragons books. This stuff down here is more sci-fi, Isaac Asimov, Warhammer, Orson Scott Card, Space Odyssey 2001. Ken Follett. Okay, this book here, The Pillars of the Earth. This was one of my husband's all-time favorite books, and he got me to read this book, and I hated it. It was one of the worst books I've ever read, and I've been mad at him for years for making me read that book, and I haven't wanted to read any of the other books that he has recommended to me because of it. Battlefield Earth by L. Ron Hubbard is one of his favorites. He has read and listened to this one so many times that I know the whole story just from like hearing it while he's, you know, walking around the house. That one's pretty interesting. The movie's terrible though. And some more Warhammer and Children of Time. This book is kind of more recent and it's super weird. It has like space spiders in it. And The Swarm by Orson Scott Card, I think goes along with Ender's Game. All right, had to move upstairs to the office where we have another one of his bookcases. This one is loaded with sci-fi fantasy books. I'm not going to go over all of it, but to give you a little peek at it, he has a bunch of Star Wars books. L.E. Modestat, these right here. This is another series that he loves and highly recommends. More of the Robert Jordan books. We have some Random Skull. I don't remember where that came from. Next shelf down is some of his stuff from the Marine Corps. Then we have more Orson Scott Card. He did get me to read Ender's Game a couple years ago, and I liked that one, but I liked the movie more because it was easier for me to visualize things. Got the Mistborn trilogy here. This is another one that I've heard him listen to, so I feel like I know the books. Then we got some Robin Hobb. I know there's a bunch of Robin Hobb fans out there, so here you go. Next one down, some more Warhammer, more R.A. Salvatore. Got some Anne McCaffrey. He also loves, she has a dragon series that he talked my daughter into reading when she was a kid. Got some more Dragonlance books over here. These books he liked a lot, Rhapsody and Destiny from Elizabeth Hayden. Tad Williams. Next shelf down is some of his hardbacks. We got some Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. These two books he liked a lot from, what's his name, James Islington. More R.A. Salvatore. You can see like a theme here. And we got this chunker from Brent Weeks. My husband loves reading giant series. The more books in the series, the better. And if he can find the whole series in one big bind up, then he's like in his happy place. Some more Robin Hobb. And then down on the bottom, we have another Witcher book. Some David and Lee Eddings. He's also a big fan of them. And then this Ken Follett book. I think this is like book 2 in the Pillars of the Earth series. Not going to be reading it. Okay, so the next shelf, we are now in my upstairs hallway. Like a legit hallway. We don't even have a room to put this in. But these are my books that I really don't have a place to put anywhere else, and it's just kind of a mashup of all the things, so it really doesn't make sense. And some of these I've had for many years, and I might not end up keeping them because I don't know if I'm interested in them anymore. But on this top shelf, you can see some of my Funko Pops. This is my favorite Disney movie, Robin Hood. So I have those little guys. I have some Nicholas Sparks books up here. Princess Bride, To Kill a Mockingbird, Scarlet Letter, some Ray Bradbury, some Mark Twain, Good Omens by Neil Gaiman. At the time that I read this book a few years ago, before I was a Christian, I loved Good Omens, and it would be interesting to see how I felt about it now. I would love to see if I still liked it or if I hated it from a Christian perspective. Then we have some Christmas books here. I don't have many of those. Needful Things by Stephen King was one of the books that I decided to keep from my horror unhaul. And again, I would like to reread that from a Christian perspective. Have Dracula's Guest by Bram Stoker. And then I have just some random, this is the Bunnicula series. It's a kid series that I had from when I was a kid. This next shelf is all Paul Dark. I got this whole book series when the show first came out. I fell in love with the show and I had to have all the books. And I really loved these covers. They are so pretty. I had to order these off of eBay because I couldn't find these covers anywhere else. But yeah, that is my Hallmark collection. We have some historical fiction. This Madame Tussauds book by Michelle Moran is one of my favorite historical fiction books ever. I learned so much about Madame Tussauds and the French Revolution from reading that book. I had my kids read it for homeschool when they were like in middle school. It was so good. Then I have The Second Empress from Michelle Moran. Also, she's a great writer. She writes about famous historical figures, so definitely check her out if you like historical fiction. Then I have The Historian, My Best Friend's Exorcism, which really doesn't go with this shelf, but again, this was a book I decided to keep from my horror unhaul. I really like that book. No. Wolf Hall was pretty popular a few years ago. That's about like the Tudor time period. I got some Susanna Kearsley in here, which I love, again, for historical fiction. Let's see, Philippa Gregory. She's really popular, or at least she was a few years ago. I don't know if she's still putting books out, but she does a lot with the Tudors. There was a time in my reading life where that's all I was reading was her books. Then we got Daphne du Maurier, Frenchman's Creek. Miriam, if you're watching this, I'm going to be reading this one soon. I know you like that book. And I love Daphne du Maurier. The Heretic Queen, another one from Michelle Moran. Geraldine Brooks. Got some Ray Bradbury. I love Fahrenheit 451. One of my favorite books. These books here, this series is paranormal romance, which I'm not going to be keeping. I basically collected this whole series because I read the first book and loved it, and then immediately I became a Christian and lost all interest in them. So yeah, they've just been sitting here forever. So then some Ray Bradbury, Gone with the Wind. All right, and here's something for Amanda. Amanda, who loves Outlander. These are my Outlander books. I don't own the whole series because I was getting them from the library when I was reading them, but I did have to have this 20th anniversary edition because it is just gorgeous. And I have the Outlandish Companion, which is actually a really cool book. It has so much neat information in there. And for some reason, I own Dragonfly and Amber, but I'm not really sure why I bought the book because, like I said, I was getting them from the library. Then this is a very random assortment of books that I've got going on here. This one, Stardust by Neil Gaiman, is about fairies, and I remember liking that one a lot. This trilogy of books is from an independent author, and I bought these at a Renaissance fair from the author, but I haven't read them yet. Some short story books. The English Patient I haven't read. A Sarah J. Maas book because back in the day I was really big into the whole paranormal romance thing. Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman is one of my favorite books of all time, and again, I would like to read that now as a Christian. Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrell, Bill Bryson. All right, this shelf makes no sense either. This is got some Beatrix Potter next to John Grisham, next to The Hunt for Red October, next to Stephen King. Like, what is happening here? I have no idea. I loved Dreamcatcher by Stephen King, so I decided to keep that book. Here is the only Riley Sager book that I own, and I got this at McKay's bookstore, I think, for super cheap. Got this really pretty edition of Great Expectations. Love that book, one of my favorites. Another Gone with the Wind. I love Gone with the Wind, so I have 2 copies of that. Some Shakespeare, and then for good measure, I have the Bridget Jones books. And then off to the side here, I have the True Blood books. The series, I think it's called the Sookie Stackhouse series. It's not called the True Blood series, but that's what the TV show is called. And I own all of those books. I've read all these books. I loved these books, but again, I don't think this is something that I could be reading now. I don't know, but I don't know if I really want to get rid of these. I have a lot of memories tied up with these books, and I might want to try to pick them up again someday just to see what I think. I'm really interested in what I think of certain books now from a Christian point of view, if that makes sense. All right, guys, I guess that's all I'm going to show for today. I feel like this video is going to be really long, and I don't know if this is boring or not for anybody. I just thought it would be cool to show something different and book related, something y'all don't see all the time. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for this video. I hope it wasn't horrible, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.